He thought he had it all, a loving wife, two beautiful children, and a family he cherished. But when his doubts about paternity were confirmed, his world shattered. Neither of his children were his. Now he's walking away from the life he built, facing judgment from everyone around him. This is the story of a man betrayed, forced to choose between his own healing and the expectations of a society that says he should man up and stay. About a month ago, I found out both of my children were the results of my soon-to-be ex-wife's affairs. I've had a feeling for a while now that both them were not mine. 6 years ago, when my son was born, I was the happiest I had been in my entire life. I had married my best friend, we had a child together, and everything seemed amazing. That was until he started getting older. After a few years, I started to have doubts that he was actually mine. He did not look like my child. The more he started to grow, the more I realized just how different he looked compared to what I would expect a child of mine to look like. I am not petty or paranoid enough to let that alone drive me. It was my whore of a wife that really set my alarms off. Whenever she went out, she never went where she said she did. She would have huge holes in her schedule she could never explain to me. She would refuse to allow me to interact with anyone from her workplace. And a close friend of hers accused her of flirting with her SRO at the time. It did not help that soon after our son was born, her lies started to catch up with her. Still, though, I loved her like the fool I was. She told me up and down how much she loved me whenever one of her lies caught up with her. She had convinced me that despite the fact she was a lying and manipulative woman, that she wasn't a lying, manipulative whore. Last year, she got pregnant again, and I still held out a small bit of hope that it was mine. But when her daughter was born, it was obvious she was mixed race. I refused to sign the birth certificate, and the paternity test I demanded afterwards proved my suspicions right all along. Neither of them are mine. The day I got those test results were the day I filed for divorce from that whore and walked away from the family I had created. I knew that it would destroy her son's life to see me walk out. Despite my concerns, I was the best dad I could be to him. I loved him with all my heart and put in 110% into being the father he deserved. Now, though, when I see him, I am filled with disgust. Disgust for my whore of a wife, disgust with myself for not trusting my instincts, and disgust that the last 6 years of my life have been for nothing. I have been told by multiple people now that I am a monster for leaving my son like this. My ex has tried on multiple occasions since I moved out to use him to guilt me into getting back with her. She will have him call me at random hours of the night, crying and begging for his daddy to come back. The day I moved out, she paraded him into the room as I packed my things to show me how much damage I am doing. In every conversation that he has brought up, both online and off, I am berated and shamed. That despite the fact I am not the boy's biological father, I am his dad. What I have sadly now realized is that, to most, my own feelings mean nothing. My parents are my only supporters through all this, with my own siblings calling me a despicable person for abandoning a child like that. My feelings of betrayal and sadness mean nothing, because a child is involved. I know it is not his fault. I know that the man he called his father for his entire life just walked away. But why am I expected to man up? Why should I have to pretend everything is fine, and I do not feel contempt for this entire situation? Why should I put my own life and feelings aside? I never was the boy's father. I loved him like one and honestly still do. But I would come to hate and contempt him if I had to play that role. Hate myself for not standing up and taking my own life back into my own hands. He is not my child, and even though it is not his fault, he is not my problem anymore. Betrayal doesn't just break trust, it breaks lives, yes. For him, the discovery that his children weren't his was a devastating blow, compounded by the guilt and shame others piled on him for walking away. But why should he sacrifice his own happiness to uphold a lie? His story forces us to ask, where do we draw the line between responsibility and self-preservation? Should he have stayed, or was walking away the only way to reclaim his life? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more raw, emotional stories about love, betrayal, and the courage to start over.